RSA is widely considered the largest cybersecurity conference in the world. This week we have our very own security editor, Kyle Alspach. He's on the ground in San Francisco attending the show this week. Welcome to In Depth, everyone. Kyle, what have been the major topics of conversation at RSA this year? I know it's a big question, but what are you hearing and seeing at the show?
Well, it's a big question, but it's actually a pretty simple answer, which is just AI. Although there's a bunch of different angles to that. So it's not just all about using AI for security or about protecting AI, but there's a number of different aspects to it. But those are certainly some big ones. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion about how we're going to use AI to improve security, which is already happening, but this is going to really change a lot once we get into the agentic world. So there's just been a ton of discussion. I mean, I've done a lot of interviews this week, and I think we probably are talking about AI 80% of the time. And it doesn't feel forced. I think that's the biggest difference is that, the past few years of this show, AI has been a big theme. But in previous years, I think it felt a lot more like people were, trying to talk about it more than it deserved and force it into the discussion. This year, I think it actually is very natural to talk about it because it really is the biggest thing going on right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree that it's definitely moved from buzzword to, we're actually seeing it in products and there's actual use cases now. Speaking of those use cases, how much discussion has there been around AI agents and kind of what that will mean?
That's the newest thing, and so I think there's been a huge amount of conversation on that. One of the big things is we don't know exactly what agents are yet or what they're going to ultimately look like. So some of it is ends up being a little bit theoretical, but certainly I think everybody sees that just like in every area. Agents are going to have a huge impact on security. But the other aspect to it that's maybe even more specific to the conference is just how are we going to secure the use of agents? Because agents are going to have the power to do a lot of different things. If we want them to be, useful, we're going to have to give them a lot of responsibility and come to trust them. And so there's just been a lot of discussion around, how do we actually come to trust an agent? What does that actually look like? And how are we going to get a handle on some of these issues around data, privacy and access and all these different issues that come with having something like an agent, which is essentially supposed to be able to do a lot of the same things that a person would do.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting how it seems like AI has made cybersecurity harder because it's kind of up to that level of sophistication in terms of attacks, but it's also helping administrators at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating thing to, when someone says, they're going to talk about AI, I'm always trying to guess, well, which one are they going to, bring up? Are they going to, talk about the fact that attackers are using it, which is absolutely true, or about how it's going to help the defenders? I mean, I have heard, a few sort of arguments this week, too, that it is actually going to be more useful to the defenders, which is something that, I think it's a very interesting question. Whether does it help the attackers more or help the defenders? I've heard the argument that, well, we've had, Gen AI for a couple of years now, and the attackers have mostly just been using it to do things faster and, maybe write their emails more, more effectively, but they're not necessarily using it in any kind of new ways. They're not doing new types of attacks with AI yet. So, whereas on the defense side, there are examples of lots of new things that, cyber defense teams are able to use it for.
Yeah. And speaking of the good guys, what are the big takeaways for partners from this year's RSA?
I think that the biggest one just comes down to it's really not possible to ignore it anymore. For anybody that has kind of felt like, like you said, it has been a buzzword for sure. But I think for anybody that has felt like, this is just hype, it's getting harder and harder to say that. And so I think that, partners, ones who have already been, investing in it and exploring it, should continue down that road. And ones who maybe haven't been, I think probably, it's real now. I guess that's the biggest takeaway is that, it really is being used in actual, mainstream uses within customers. And, even apart from that, just the fact that the attackers are using it does mean that it's becoming less and less optional whether or not to use tools that utilize AI.
Yeah, certainly. So, AI, obviously, huge part of RSA this year. AI is just huge across all of our beats, frankly, right now. I know it's big on the networking beat as well, what I cover. I know you'll continue to cover this kind of crossover between AI and what it means for cybersecurity. Kyle, thanks so much for joining us, and have a great time with the rest of the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.